so today we get to learn more about Nirva and what led to, her deciding to even use her skills and expertise to do this work. And so I just want to, you guys can give a round of applause in the chat. Welcome, Nirva. I want to start off by getting to know, you personally. You mentioned several degrees, but what was your decision in, supply chain and technology? So why this path specifically?
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you guys so much for having me. And I'm looking forward to just, we're just chill, getting to know each other, so you guys get to know a little more about just the person, right, and why I'm so passionate about this topic. So to answer your question, I attribute it to my mom, who, again, I'm going to go my story's like full circle. It's crazy, but I think it's so important in understanding like how I got here. So I was born in Miami. I became an orphan, unfortunately, at the age of 4. So I was raised by my aunt and my grandmother. I am of Haitian descent. I'm first gen. So if you know anything about the Haitian culture, I'm the only girl, the oldest. So it's just very important to, like there's a lot expected from you, right? So mediocrity is just not even up for conversation. So I think that attributes a lot to just the work ethic that comes from my mom. But my mom, I originally told her what I wanted to do, and she was like, that's not gonna pay the bills. So you know how Haitian mothers are. So was raised by them. So my story took me to California, and then I moved back to Miami for school. But I say all that to say that I used to do like summer classes for fun. My mom thought like taking college courses. So in the summer, I was doing like college courses like in math and in technology, going to like, summer camps for everything was very education focused. Like there was a meaning behind everything. It wasn't just, you're just gonna, having fun in a Haitian household. Yeah, you're gonna do math classes. So that's the kind of things that, my mom just really made sure that I had access and exposure to. So, you are what the people that you hang around with and the things that you get involved in. I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with math and technology and supply chain, all those things. It wasn't supply chain then, I didn't realize that, right? But as I progressed and throughout my career, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what my mom was preparing me for. So a lot of it is because of my mom. She gave me access and took me places that she never even had access to herself, but she knew that she wanted better for us, my brothers and I. So that's how my mom is the reason why I even got into the field and got exposed to it. And I'm like, okay, I like this. The first couple of days I hated it. Well, actually months, I should say. I didn't like it. And I'm like, why can't I just go play outside? I want to just play with my friends. And she was like, nah, you need to be in class. So summers for me were classrooms, college classrooms, summer camps, anything based on like, how do you still learn? You can still have fun, but you need to be learning something, and there's a bigger picture here. So that's where my story starts.
So for those that were not here on Tuesday, can you tell us specifically, what degrees you have, where did you study, and why?
Sure. So I ended up going to FMU, which is an HBCU here in Miami, Florida. Picked it, and I got my bachelor in mathematics, pure mathematics. I like to say that because I earned every bit of that degree. I started off thinking it was supposed to be education, right? So which is a little bit, that program is not as difficult. And then I realized maybe a couple months into it, I'm like, I want to just do pure mathematics. I want to just do the whole thing and just do it afraid. So pure mathematics with a minor in computer science, basically had no life. And then I went on to Embry-Riddle and did my master's in aerospace engineering. For you guys, so just to kind of bring it back, like, okay, how did you do math and go into aviation? The place that I'm from is called Ridgecrest, California. And that's what I was exposed to. I had a lot of aviation around me. So it was an aviation town. The person that is like my father figure, he's in aviation, and he inspired me to get into aviation. I love airplanes. And so that's why I did that pivot there too. And then I didn't drop this also, but I also did go on and I got my MBA as well. Because at that point, once I got into corporate America, I realized there were some things that I didn't know that I wanted to learn. So then I went on and did my Master's of Business Administration at Embry-Riddle as well. And the Embry-Riddle was strategic because if we're just going to be real, it is hard for Black women, right? We have to sit at the table, to sit at the, just, you have to, come correct. You can't do certain things, and there is no slacking. So I made a strategic decision to pick that school and work my butt off to get into there and actually finish those degrees.
Wow. I would judge you, but I have like 3, technically 4. Well, I'm not. I have no. I was like, wow, that was a lot of sacrifice. But I think, in Miami, we're so diverse, but culturally, I feel like we have a lot of similarities when it comes to our families really pushing us to go as far as possible. And so when and you can tell us about your current work, because I can correct me if I'm wrong, but you also work with a tech company here locally, correct?
Yeah.
Right. And so where did the aviation, expertise in math and tech and an MBA transition into this specific food and beverage planet?
So, I mean, everything, I'm a religious person, so I think everything happens. Your story's already written for you, and I truly believe that. My first job out of school was in the F&B industry. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I did not understand it because I had this fancy degree that I worked really hard for, and I was really proud of myself. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to come out of school. I'm going to get an X amount. You just have expectations, right? And as the Lord would have it, I'm in, I got in the F&B industry. Granted, my first job in high school was in F&B. I mean, because I was working at Carl's Jr., loved every minute of that, but I was in high school, right? I didn't have much expectation. I was just trying to make sure I had a little money in my pocket and still work. But after college, I had expectations, and I say all that to say, my first job out of school, that was the only place I could get a job. With all these fancy degrees, that was the only place willing to hire me. So I had to humble myself. Mm-hmm. And just, like, okay, Lord, what are you doing? Like, what is it that you're trying to teach me? Let me just really listen and appreciate the journey, like learn. There's a reason for everything happening. And so I took that opportunity and worked it. And that was my introduction into supply chain. Believe it or not. And so I'm like, okay, well, what is this? And so I was responsible. I worked with FOH, which I don't know if you guys know, is a really big company in Miami. They're called front of the house. So they pretty much manage like all the dishwares, right? All the things that I never even thought twice about when you go to a restaurant, like the plates, just everything that happens in the front of the house. And we did some back of the house stuff as well. But that was my introduction to the F&B industry. Like I said, I didn't appreciate that journey in the beginning, but now looking back on it, I'm like, wow, it was amazing because it taught me to humble myself, to go into things not, and just be okay with being fluid, right? I don't have to always have I had a plan, right? I had like a 2-year plan, 3-year plan. It's like, okay, you can have a plan, but you still got to be okay to just be fluid and go with the flow. So I learned so many things now, in doing that. Now that when I go to restaurants, I'm always like looking at the manufacturer of the plate, like who made the plate? Who's the So I have a different appreciation for the food and beverage industry and what it takes to, just working with chefs and seeing, what it takes to run a business. And they're passionate, and there's so many components of a restaurant that we don't think about as a consumer. So that was my introduction to the F&B, and that's how that pivot came about. Because after school, again, no one was hiring me. The thing I kept hearing was, you have these nice, great, nice fancy education, but you have no experience. And I'm like, well, I'm not gonna get experience if no one hires me.
Right.
So I'm so grateful for FOH, because FOH was the first company to take me, to give me the opportunity. And from there, it just, it led me to this part of my life here without even knowing that's where I was going to go.
I will raise my hand as if I were in the chat about coming out of college with a degree and assuming that, yes, and now the world is my oyster and I'm just going to be able to get whatever I want. Whew. Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. We'll have to create like a after hour section for me to tell those stories. That was that was a lesson learned. Definitely. I'll add to that. My experience previously had been with just businesses from every industry, but they were at a specific financial level, right? And many of the companies were, it was like a grandfathered in because the capital had just been there. Very few were, okay, started from the bottom, now I'm here, right? And the ones that were came from a specific, wealth, came from wealth. And so I also had just a completely different, I had a different idea about what it would take to do this type of work based on where you lived. And so this process of working with our local food entrepreneurs, I learned so much within the past 2 to 3 years was a learning curve for me as well. And so, and that's what led me to start up FIU Food.